The silver probe drifted through the darkness of space, its sensors recording everything about the small blue planet below. For 3 months, it had watched the inhabitants of Earth, collecting data and sending reports back to the Krovar Dominion. The information traveled across light years, reaching the homeworld where commanders and scientists studied every detail. Ambassador Threxus stood before the War Council, his forearms holding data tablets that glowed with information. The council chamber was massive, with curved walls that displayed images of the 47 star systems that Krovar had conquered. Threxus had served the Dominion for 60 years, and he knew how to present findings that would catch the council's attention. The species calls themselves humans, Threxus began, his voice echoing through the chamber. They have developed nuclear technology, basic spaceflight, and primitive computing systems. However, there are concerning patterns in their history. Commander Zelth, the head of the War Council, leaned forward in his seat. His purple skin darkened slightly, a sign of interest among the Krovar people. Concerning how? He asked. They sound like every other primitive species we have absorbed into the Dominion. Threxus tapped one of his tablets, and the chamber walls displayed human warfare throughout history. Battles, weapons, strategies, all flickering across the screens in rapid succession. They have been in constant conflict for their entire recorded history. They adapt their warfare tactics faster than any species we have encountered. In just 100 of their years, they went from basic flight to splitting atoms. That makes them dangerous to each other, not to us, Zalth replied with a dismissive wave. Divided species are easy to conquer. They will surrender before we even land ground forces. Before Threxus could respond, the chamber doors opened. A Velkin representative walked in, moving slowly on 6 legs. The Velkin collective was one of the oldest species in the galaxy, having existed for millions of years. They rarely interfered with other species' affairs, which made this visit unusual. We received word that you are considering action against Earth, the Velkin said, its translator making its clicking language understandable. We are here to offer a warning. Do not engage the humans. They are unlike any species you have encountered. Zalth stood up, his full height making him tower over the Velkin representative. The Velkin collective gives warnings now. Your people have not fought a war in 10,000 years. You have grown soft and afraid. We have grown wise, the Velkin responded calmly. We have observed humanity from a distance for centuries. They possess something that cannot be measured in weapons or technology. They have a will to survive that defies logic. Zalth laughed, and several council members joined him. Every species wants to survive. That is not special. What is special is the Krovar military, which has never lost a conquest. We have defeated species far more advanced than these humans. The Velkin representative's body language showed sadness. Among its people, this posture meant deep regret for what was to come. We have delivered our warning. What you do with it is your choice. But no, the humans will surprise you. They always surprise those who underestimate them. After the Velkin left, Threxus tried again. Commander, perhaps we should study them longer. Their psychological profiles are unusual. They form strong bonds with non-family members. They create art and music even during wars. They have a concept they call hope that keeps them fighting even when defeat seems certain.
Poetry and feelings.
Do not win wars, Zalth said firmly. Facts win wars. Let me tell you the facts. We have 300 warships. They have none. We have plasma weapons that can burn through their strongest metals. They have chemical explosives. We have conquered 47 star systems. They have not even colonized their own moon permanently. Zalth pulled up images of Earth on the chamber walls. The planet showed divided into hundreds of territories, with different governments and systems. Look at them. They cannot even unite their own planet. The northern hemisphere fights the southern hemisphere. The eastern regions argue with the western regions. They have thousands of languages and cannot agree on basic things. Another council member, General Vorth, nodded in agreement. Our intelligence shows they spend more resources fighting each other than exploring space. They have had the technology to reach other planets for decades, yet they waste time on territorial disputes over imaginary lines. Threxus felt a cold sensation in his chest. He had studied enough species to know that appearances could deceive. Commander, the Velkin have never been wrong about a species assessment. In all recorded history, their warnings have been accurate. The Velkin have become cowards, Zalth declared. They see threats everywhere because they no longer have the strength to face real challenges. The humans are no different from the Borthax of System 23 or the Quillen of System 35. They will resist for a few days, realize they cannot win, and surrender. Then we will have access to their planet's resources, water, minerals, and a workforce of 8 billion. The council voted. One by one, members raised their primary arms in favor of invasion. Only Threxus abstained, his tablets still glowing with data about human history. He looked at images of human soldiers, their faces showing determination even in defeat. He saw footage of humans helping each other during natural disasters. He read their literature about sacrifice and honor. We will send 3 warships, Zelth announced after the vote concluded. We will arrive in their orbit and give them 48 hours to surrender. When they see our superior technology, they will have no choice but to submit. This will be the easiest conquest in Dominion history. Threxus gathered his tablets and left the chamber. As he walked through the corridors of the Krovar Command Center, he accessed one final piece of human data. It was a quote from one of their military leaders, translated into Krovar language. Never interrupt your enemy when he is making a mistake. He wondered if the Krovar were making a mistake. The evidence suggested they were. But pride was a powerful force, and the Krovar had too much of it. They had won every battle for 300 years. Why would this be different? 3 days later, 3 massive Krovar warships left their home system. Jumping through hyperspace toward Earth, each ship carried 5,000 soldiers, enough to occupy a primitive planet. The journey would take 2 weeks. Threxus sent one final message to Zelth. I recommend we prepare for unexpected resistance. Human psychology suggests they will not react as our models predict. Zalth's response was brief. Your concern is noted and dismissed. Begin preparations for occupation administration. We will need governors for their major cities. As the warships traveled through the void of space, the Velkin Collective sent encrypted messages to other elder species. The messages were simple. The Krovar have chosen to ignore our warning about Earth. We should observe what happens. It will be a lesson for the younger species who still believe in easy victories. Far away on Earth, human satellites detected unusual gravitational distortions in deep space. Scientists could not explain them, but military officials took note. Something was coming. They did not know what, but humanity's long history of preparing for threats began again, as it always had. The 3 Krovar warships dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system. Their engines glowed with blue energy as they moved toward the small planet. Inside the command ship, Commander Zelth watched the approaching world with satisfaction. Everything was going according to plan. Begin the broadcast, he ordered. All languages, all frequencies. The message was simple and direct. The Krovar Dominion now claimed Earth and all its resources. Humanity had 48 hours to surrender. All military forces must disarm. All governments must submit to Krovar authority. Resistance would result in the destruction of major cities. The broadcast repeated every 10 minutes in every human language. On Earth, chaos erupted. Every television, radio, and communication device received the message. People gathered in streets, watching the sky where 3 massive ships hung in orbit. The ships were enormous, each one larger than the biggest aircraft carrier humanity had ever built. They blocked out stars and reflected sunlight like dark mirrors. The United Nations called an emergency session. Representatives from every nation filled the assembly hall, their faces showing fear and confusion. The Secretary General stood at the podium, her voice shaking slightly as she spoke. We have 48 hours to respond. We need to decide our course of action. We should surrender, said one representative. We cannot fight ships that size. We have no weapons that can reach orbit effectively. We cannot surrender without trying, another argued. If we give up now, humanity becomes slaves. Our children will never know freedom. While politicians debated, something unexpected happened. Military officials from different nations started talking to each other directly. A general from one country called a general from a country they had been enemies with for 50 years. Scientists who had never shared research began sending encrypted files across borders. Hackers from different continents started working together, trying to crack the alien signals. In a secure bunker beneath the Swiss Alps, representatives from 12 nations gathered in secret. These were not politicians, but military strategists, intelligence officers, and scientists. They had no authority to make deals, but they had the practical knowledge to prepare for war. "We need to assume they will attack regardless of our answer," said Colonel Martinez from North America. "Species that make demands like this do not accept peaceful coexistence." "Agreed," replied General Wei from Asia. "We should use the 48 hours to prepare, not to debate surrender." Dr. Olson, a communications expert from Europe, pulled up data on her screen. "I have been analyzing their broadcast signal. It is sophisticated, but it follows logical patterns. If we can decode their base language, we might intercept their internal communications." "Can that be done in 48 hours? Someone asked. "With enough computing power and cooperation, maybe," Dr. Olson replied. "But I would need access to servers and mathematicians from around the world." "You will have it," General Wei said firmly. "I will make the calls." Aboard the Krovar command ship, Zelth monitored Earth's communications. He expected panic, begging, maybe some brave threats. What he saw confused him. The humans were coordinating. Old enemies were sharing technology. Nations that had been at war were now talking about combined defense. "This is unusual," Threxus said, standing beside Zalth on the bridge. "They should be fighting among themselves, blaming each other for attracting our attention." "It is temporary," Zalth replied. "Fear makes them seek comfort in numbers. Once they understand the reality of their situation, they will turn on each other. Some will offer to help us conquer their enemies in exchange for better treatment." The 48 hours passed. Zalth expected multiple surrender offers, but received only one official response from the United Nations. It was not a surrender. It was a statement: "Humanity rejects your claim to our world. We will defend ourselves." Zelth felt anger rise in his chest. How dare these primitives refuse? He activated the weapons systems. "Target the military installation in their Nevada region. Fire one plasma bolt. Let them see what happens when they defy us." The plasma weapon charged with a high-pitched sound. Energy gathered at the ship's main cannon. Then, with a flash of green light, a bolt of superheated plasma shot toward Earth. It moved faster than anything humans had ever created, leaving a trail across the sky. But when it hit the Nevada installation, the base was empty. Every person had evacuated 20 minutes before impact. The plasma bolt destroyed buildings and equipment, leaving a crater half a mile wide. But there were no casualties. Zalth stared at the damage reports in disbelief. How did they know where we would strike? Threxus pulled up intercepted human communications. His expression showed shock. "Commander, they cracked our communication encryption. They have been reading our tactical discussions for the past 12 hours. It's impossible," Zalth said. "Our encryption is military grade. It would take years for a primitive species to decode." "They did not decode it alone," Threxus explained. "They pooled resources from hundreds of their best mathematicians and used their most powerful computers. Working together, they broke our code." Zalth felt something he had not experienced in many years: doubt. These humans were more capable than the intelligence reports suggested. They were adapting faster than any species should be able to adapt. "Change all encryption codes," he ordered, "and prepare for ground assault. We will occupy their major cities and show them they cannot hide from us." But even as Zelth gave orders, something else was happening. Human hackers, working from dozens of countries, had done more than break the Krovar communication code. They had found a backdoor into the ship's less secure systems: navigation, life support monitoring, inventory management. These were not weapon systems, but they provided valuable intelligence. A young hacker in South Korea discovered that one of the 3 Krovar ships had a faulty oxygen recycling system. It was minor, not life-threatening, but it meant that ship would need to use backup systems if primary systems failed. In Brazil, a team of programmers mapped the ship's power distribution. They learned which systems drew the most energy and when. In India, artificial intelligence experts started predicting Crovar movement patterns based on the intercepted communications. All this information flowed to the secret bunker in Switzerland. Military strategists studied it, looking for weaknesses. They knew they could not win a direct battle, but they might survive through cleverness and unconventional tactics. "They think we are primitive," Colonel Martinez said, looking at the data. "They expect us to fight like they fight. That is their weakness. What do you propose?" General Wei asked. "We make them think they are winning," Martinez replied. "We let them land ground forces. Then we show them what guerrilla warfare looks like. We make every street a battle. We make them afraid to sleep. We make them regret coming to our world." Aboard the command ship, Zalth reviewed the invasion plan. He felt confident again. So the humans had broken one encryption code that was luck, not skill. They would not be so lucky when Crovar soldiers landed on their soil. "Prepare the dropships," he commanded. "We will land in their Australian continent. It is isolated and will serve as a good example to the rest of the planet. Once Australia falls in a day, the other nations will surrender quickly." Threxus wanted to object to remind Zelth about the Velkin warning, but he knew it would not help. The commander had made up his mind. Pride would not allow him to reconsider. As the Crovar prepared their assault, humans around the world did the same. Weapons were distributed. Civilians were evacuated from target zones. Engineers prepared traps and ambushes. Artists painted messages of defiance on walls. Parents told their children stories of heroes who fought against impossible odds. Neither side fully understood what was about to begin. The Crovar thought it would be a simple conquest. The humans knew it would be a desperate fight for survival. Both were partially right and partially wrong. The war for Earth was about to start, and it would teach both species lessons they would never forget. The Crovar. Dropships descended through Earth's atmosphere like falling stars. 20 vessels, each carrying 200 soldiers, headed toward landing zones in the Australian outback. Commander Zelth watched from orbit, confident this would be a quick victory. The Australian military was small, and the terrain was mostly empty desert, perfect for a demonstration of Crovar power. The first dropship landed near Alice Springs. The rear door opened, and Crovar soldiers marched out in perfect formation. They wore armor that could withstand most conventional weapons. Their plasma rifles could cut through concrete. They had trained for occupation duty on dozens of worlds. For the first hour, everything went according to plan. The soldiers secured the landing zone and began moving toward the nearest town. Their sensors showed scattered human life signs, but no organized military presence. It seemed the locals had fled. Then the first explosion happened. A buried device detonated under the lead squad, killing 3 soldiers instantly. The Crovar formation broke as soldiers sought cover, but cover was scarce in the flat desert. A second explosion hit the rear guard. Then a third. Improvised explosives, the battalion commander reported to Zalth, burst along our route. Our sensors did not detect them because they contained no metal or electronic components. Zalth frowned. How primitive. Send engineering units to clear the path. But clearing the path was not simple. The humans had buried hundreds of devices across multiple routes. Each one was different. Some used chemical triggers, others pressure plates, some even timer mechanisms. The Crovar engineering units worked slowly, carefully, while human snipers hiding in distant rocks picked off soldiers one by one. The snipers used basic rifles, nothing advanced, but they knew the terrain. They would fire once or twice, then disappear into caves or behind rock formations. When Crovar soldiers pursued, they would find more traps. Tripwires connected to shotguns. Pits covered with thin material. Even simple deadfalls made from heavy rocks. "This is not how warfare works," a Crovar captain complained over the radio. "They do not form lines. They do not hold positions. They attack and run like cowards." But the strategy was effective. 3 days into the ground operation, the Crovar battalion had moved only 15 kilometers. They had lost 47 soldiers. Not a single human body had been recovered. The enemy was invisible, striking from nowhere and vanishing. In other parts of Australia, similar scenes played out. Crovar soldiers entering cities found the streets blocked with overturned vehicles. Buildings had been rigged to collapse. The humans used something they called urban warfare, turning every structure into a potential death trap. A Crovar squad entered a shopping center in Sydney, looking for supplies. When they were inside, humans detonated explosives at the entrances, trapping them. Then they pumped the building full of smoke. The Crovar had advanced filters in their helmets, but the smoke contained chemicals that corroded the filters. 12 soldiers died before the rest could escape. Zelth studied the reports with growing frustration. This was not supposed to happen. Primitive species surrendered when faced with superior technology. They did not fight like this without honor, without clear battle lines, without mercy. Request reinforcements, he ordered Threxus. And analyze human military doctrine? I want to understand their tactics. Threxus assigned a team of Crovar scientists to study human history. What they found shocked them. Humans had been fighting each other for thousands of years. They had developed hundreds of different warfare styles: guerrilla tactics, siege warfare, psychological operations. Sabotage, all of it was documented in their books and films. They teach warfare to their children through entertainment, one scientist reported. They have films about small groups defeating larger forces, books about resistance movements, even games where players practice tactical thinking. This means they have been preparing for war their entire lives, Threxus said slowly. Not war against us specifically, but war against anyone. Fighting is part of their culture. Zelth refused to accept this. Culture does not stop plasma bolts. Increase the orbital bombardment. Destroy their supply lines. But the humans had no supply lines to destroy. Resistance fighters lived off the land or received help from local civilians. Food, water, medicine, all came from the population itself. The Crovar could destroy buildings, but they could not destroy the will to resist. Meanwhile, something even more concerning was happening in orbit. Human hackers had been quietly working on the Crovar ship's systems. They could not control weapon systems or engines. Those were too well protected. But they found other vulnerabilities. A team of hackers from Japan discovered they could access the secondary ship's waste management system. It seemed useless at first, but then they realized something important. If they triggered enough false alarms, the crew would have to manually check each one. This wasted time and resources. Another team from Germany found they could slightly adjust the temperature in different sections of one ship. Not enough to be dangerous, but enough to be annoying. Crovar soldiers started complaining about cold sleeping quarters or hot work areas. These were small annoyances. But they added up. The Crovar crew became irritable and tired. Maintenance teams spent hours checking systems that had no real problems. Efficiency dropped. Then the hackers made a breakthrough. A young woman in Singapore found a cascading vulnerability in the secondary ship's network. By sending a specific sequence of commands, she could cause multiple system errors simultaneously. Try it, Colonel Martinez told her from the Swiss bunker. But be ready to disconnect if they trace the signal. The hacker sent the command sequence. On the secondary Crovar warship, alarms started blaring. Navigation showed false errors. Life support monitors reported problems that did not exist. Power distribution systems began shutting down non-essential areas to preserve energy for critical functions. The ship's crew panicked. Engineers rushed to fix problems while the captain tried to determine what was happening. In the confusion, no one noticed that critical cooling systems were being overridden. The ship's main reactor started to overheat. Safety protocols should have kicked in, but the cascading errors had disabled them. By the time the Crovar engineers realized the real problem, it was too late. Evacuate the ship. The captain screamed, but evacuation takes time. Dropships had to be prepared. Crew members gathered, procedures followed. The reactor breach happened faster than they expected. A section of the ship exploded, venting atmosphere and debris into space. The explosion was not big enough to destroy the entire ship, but it crippled it. Without main power, the vessel began drifting. Life support was failing. The crew had no choice but to abandon ship. From Earth, millions of humans watched as the Krovar warship limped through orbit. Its hull torn open, escape pods launching like seeds from a dying flower. The ship slowly descended, pulled by Earth's gravity. It crashed into the Pacific Ocean with a massive splash. Sinking beneath the waves, Zelth stared at the screens on his bridge, unable to believe what he had seen. One of his 3 warships was gone, not destroyed in honorable battle, but killed by primitive computer tricks. The humans had not used missiles or energy weapons. They had used code, hacking through security that should have been impenetrable. How? He asked Threxus. How did they penetrate our systems? Threxus had the report ready. They did not use brute force. They found small vulnerabilities in non-critical systems and exploited them. They were patient, working for days to map our networks. Then they struck when we were distracted by ground operations. Patient Zelth repeated the word. They planned this while being attacked. While their cities burned? Yes, Commander. The humans think differently than we do. They do not see war as a single battle. They see it as a long campaign. They are willing to lose small fights to win the larger war. For the first time, Zelth began to understand what the Velkin had tried to warn him about. These humans were not strong because of their technology or weapons. They were strong because of how they thought. They adapted, improvised, used whatever resources they had, and most importantly, they did not give up. On the ground in Australia, Krovar soldiers were learning the same lesson. A battalion got surrounded in the outback. Humans had cut off their communication with the ships and were slowly picking them off. The Krovar soldiers were running out of supplies, and the desert heat was breaking down their equipment. The battalion commander made a desperate decision. He ordered a full retreat to the original landing zone. But the route back was even more heavily trapped than the route forward. Of the 200 soldiers in the battalion, only 73 made it back to the ship's cell. Watch the casualty reports climb. 47 dead had become 200, then 500, then 1,000. And that was just Australia. He had not even attempted to invade other continents. He accessed the Velkin message again. It's the one they had sent before the invasion. Do not engage the humans. They are unlike any species you have encountered. At the time, he had dismissed it as fear. Now, he realized it was wisdom, Commander Threxus said quietly. The Velkin Collective is trying to contact us again. Should I accept the call? Zelth wanted to refuse, but he needed information. Accept it. The Velkin representative appeared on screen, its 6 legs moving in a pattern that meant sadness among its people. Commander Zelth, we warned you. We tried to prevent this. You could have told us why, Zelth said bitterly. You could have explained, would you have listened? The Velkin asked. Would any explanation have changed your decision? Your pride would not allow it. You needed to learn this lesson yourself. What lesson? Zelth demanded. That humans fight dirty? That they cheat? No, the Velkin said. The lesson is that survival is not about honor or rules. It is about will. Humans have been fighting for survival since they climbed down from trees. Every predator, every disease, every disaster, they survived it all. War is not something special to them. It is simply life. The screen went dark, leaving Zelth alone with his thoughts and his failing invasion. 6 months had passed since the Krovar invasion began. Commander Zelth stood on his bridge, staring at maps that showed Krovar-controlled territory. The red zones marked only 15% of Earth's surface. His projections had predicted 70% control by now. Everything had gone wrong. The Krovar soldiers, who had landed in Australia, had retreated to fortified positions. They controlled a small area around their original landing zones, but venturing beyond those zones meant death. Human resistance fighters attacked supply convoys, poisoned water sources, and spread propaganda that weakened Krovar morale. Worse, humans had started using captured Krovar weapons against them. Engineers had reverse-engineered plasma rifles within weeks. They could not manufacture them in large quantities, but special operations teams now carried Krovar technology alongside human weapons. The psychological impact on Krovar soldiers was devastating. Being killed by their own weapons felt like a betrayal of the natural order in North America. A joint human strike force prepared for a major operation. Colonel Martinez stood in a command center, watching screens that showed the remaining Crovar warship in orbit. After losing the second ship, Zelth had pulled the third one closer to his command vessel for protection. Both ships now hung above the Atlantic Ocean. "We have one chance," Martinez told the assembled officers. "The third ship is damaged, but operational. Our hackers have mapped its defense systems. If we can get close enough, we can board it." "Board it with what?" asked a Russian pilot. "We have no spacecraft capable of orbital combat." "No," Martinez agreed. "But we have modified Crovar dropships that we captured in Australia, and we have pilots brave enough to fly them." The plan was insane. Human pilots would use captured alien ships to approach the Crovar warship. They would pretend to be returning Crovar soldiers. If they got close enough, they would launch hijacked Crovar fighters and attach explosives to the ship's hull. Not to destroy it completely, but to cripple its engines and weapons at the same time. 3 submarines would launch modified nuclear missiles from the ocean. The missiles had been fitted with Crovar guidance systems, also captured and reverse-engineered. The two-pronged attack would force Zelth to divide his attention. "This will cost lives," General Way said grimly. "The pilots have maybe a 30% chance of survival." "I know," Martinez replied. "But if we do nothing, we lose slowly. If we attack, we might win." The volunteers were chosen. 12 pilots, all of them experienced, all of them aware they might not return. They said goodbye to families through video calls, writing final letters, and making peace with their choices. As preparations continued, Zelth received an unexpected communication. The Velkin Collective was calling again, but this time they addressed him differently. "Commander Zelth, we are contacting you with a final warning. Withdraw now. You still have time to leave with some dignity." Zelth felt rage build in his chest. "You think I will run? I am a Crovar commander. We do not surrender to primitives." "They're not primitives," the Velkin said patiently. "That is what you refuse to understand. Technology does not measure intelligence. Humans may not have faster ships or better weapons, but they have something more important. They will never stop fighting. You can kill 1,000,000 of them, and the rest will keep coming. You can destroy their cities, and they will fight from the ruins. I will not withdraw," Zelth said firmly. "I have requested reinforcements from the Dominion. When they arrive, we will crush this resistance." "Reinforcements will not come," the Velkin revealed. "The Dominion High Command has been reviewing your reports. They have issued a withdrawal order. Check your priority communications." Zelth disconnected from the Velkin and accessed the Dominion Command Network. There, waiting in his queue, was an official order. He read it 3 times, unable to believe the words. The Dominion was cutting its losses. The invasion of Earth was deemed too costly. Crovar casualties were approaching 12,000. 2 warships had been lost. The cost in resources and prestige was too high. All forces were ordered to evacuate immediately, but Zelth could not accept this. He had spent his entire life serving the Dominion. He had conquered planets, defeated enemies, earned medals and honor. He could not return home as the first commander to fail an invasion against a primitive species. He deleted the withdrawal order from his system. Then he deleted it from all ship communication logs. His officers would never see it. The ground forces would never know it existed. "Threxus," he called to his second-in-command. "Prepare for a full-scale assault on human population centers. We will break their will to fight." Threxus looked shocked. "Commander, that would be genocide." "The Dominion does not. The Dominion is not here," Zelth interrupted. "I am here, and I will not be defeated by these creatures." Launch the assault. Plasma weapons charged on both remaining warships. Targeting systems locked onto major cities: New York, London, Tokyo, Mumbai, São Paulo. Zelth planned to destroy them all in one coordinated strike. Without their population centers, human resistance would collapse. But as the weapons prepared to fire, alarms blared on the bridge. The hijacked Krovar dropships were approaching from Earth, broadcasting fake identification codes. At the same time, the submarine-launched missiles broke through the ocean surface. Defensive systems. Zalth ordered. The Krovar ships focused on the missiles, destroying most of them with point defense weapons. But while their attention was on the missiles, the hijacked dropships got close. Human pilots launched their fighters and targeted the third ship's engine section. The fighters were small and fast. Krovar defenses shot down 7 of them, but 5 got through. They attached electromagnetic charges to the ship's hull and detonated them. The explosions tore through the engine assembly, causing cascading failures. The third ship lost power. Its orbit began to decay. Emergency systems kicked in, but they could not stop the ship from falling. The crew evacuated in panic, but many did not make it to the escape pods in time. Zelth watched in horror as the third ship descended toward Earth. It crashed in the Sahara Desert, creating a crater visible from orbit. Most of the crew died on impact. Only the command ship remained now. Zalth's ship, and it was alone. On Earth, humans celebrated. They had destroyed 2 Krovar warships and severely damaged a third. The cost had been high. 9 of the 12 pilots died in the attack, but they had proven that the aliens could be beaten. Zal sat in his command chair, staring at empty space. He had 1 ship against an entire planet. His ground forces were scattered and isolated. He had no reinforcements coming. The smart choice was to evacuate the surviving soldiers and retreat, but pride is not a logical force. It does not care about smart choices. Open a channel to all human governments, Zalth ordered. His face appeared on screens across Earth. He looked tired, his purple skin faded to a lighter shade. But his eyes still burned with determination. Humans of Earth, he began, I offer you 1 final chance. Surrender now, and I will spare your major cities. Continue fighting, and I will turn your planet into a graveyard. You have destroyed 3 of my ships, but I still have weapons that can end your civilization. Choose wisely. The response came not from governments, but from ordinary people. Within hours, videos appeared on the internet. Children holding signs that said never, elderly people who had survived previous wars giving speeches about courage, artists painting murals of resistance, musicians writing songs of defiance. 1 video went viral across the planet. It showed a young girl, maybe 8 years old, standing in the ruins of a bombed city. She looked directly at the camera and spoke in English. Her words translated into dozens of languages. Mr. Alien Commander, my teacher told me about bullies. She said bullies want you to be afraid. But if you stand up to them, they go away. So we are standing up. You can blow up our buildings, but you cannot blow up our courage. Please go home. We do not want to hurt you anymore. Zalth watched the video. He saw the destroyed buildings behind the child, the smoke still rising from recent attacks. He saw her dirty face and torn clothes. But her eyes showed no fear, only determination. Something broke inside him. Not his pride that would take longer to break, but his certainty. For the first time, he truly understood that he could not win this war. Threxis, he said quietly, how many soldiers do we have on the surface? 3,000, Commander. Scattered across 7 continents, prepare to evacuate them. All of them. We are leaving. Threxis' relief was visible. The withdrawal order from the Dominion, you received it? I deleted it, Zelth admitted. I thought I could still win. I was wrong. The evacuation took 3 days. Krovar soldiers fought their way to pick up points while human forces, ordered to allow the retreat, watched from a distance. There were a few skirmishes, a few acts of revenge. But mostly humans let the aliens leave, as the last dropship docked with Zalf's command vessel. The commander took 1 final look at Earth, the blue planet that had defeated him, the home of a species he had underestimated. The ship's engines activated, and the vessel began its journey home. Zelth would face court-martial. He would lose his rank, his honor, maybe even his freedom. But he would carry 1 lesson for the rest of his life. Never dismiss a warning from those who know better. Arrogance is not strength, that is blindness. The journey back to the Krovar homeworld took 3 weeks. Commander Zelth spent most of that time in his quarters, avoiding his crew. He knew they blamed him for the disaster. 12,000 Krovar soldiers dead, 3 warships lost or destroyed, an entire invasion force defeated by a species that had not even colonized its own solar system. When his ship finally approached Krovar Prime, Zalth received a brief message from the Dominion High Command. He was to report directly to the military tribunal. No delays, no excuses. His career was over, that much was certain. The only question was whether he would also face imprisonment. The tribunal chamber was a dark room with seats arranged in a circle. 7 judges, all high-ranking military officials, sat in judgment. Zelth stood in the center, wearing the uniform he had worn for 40 years. It would likely be the last time. Commander Zelth, the head judge began. You are charged with the following crimes: ignoring a direct withdrawal order from High Command, delaying evacuation of ground forces, resulting in unnecessary casualties, gross negligence in assessing enemy capabilities, wasting Dominion resources on an unwinnable campaign. How do you respond? Guilty, Zelth said simply. There was no point in lying. To all charges. Silence filled the chamber. The judges had expected excuses, justifications, maybe even defiance. Acceptance was unusual. You admit you deleted the withdrawal order? Another judge asked. Yes, I thought I could still win. I was wrong. My pride cost Krovar lives. The judges discussed among themselves for several minutes. Finally, the head judge spoke. Commander Zelth, you are hereby stripped of all rank and military honors. You will serve 10 years of confinement. However, the tribunal also requires something else from you. You will write a complete account of the Earth campaign. Every mistake, every misjudgment, every lesson learned. This document will be used to train future commanders. Your failure will teach others wisdom. Zelth bowed his head. I understand. I accept this sentence. As guards led him away, Threxus approached the tribunal. Honored judges, I request permission to speak. Granted, Ambassador Threxus. I was with Commander Zelth throughout the campaign. I saw what happened. The humans were unlike any species we have encountered. I believe the Dominion needs to know why. Explain, the head judge said. Threxus activated a holographic display. Images of Earth appeared, cities, landscapes, people. Humans have been fighting for survival for hundreds of thousands of years. Their evolution occurred on a hostile planet with large predators, deadly diseases, and extreme climate changes. War is not something they learned. It is something they evolved to do. He showed footage of human history, armies, battles, sieges spanning thousands of years. They have been practicing warfare longer than the Krovar have had written language. Every generation taught the next generation how to fight, how to survive, how to win against stronger enemies. The judges watched in silence as Threxus continued. But warfare is not what makes them dangerous. Many species have military capabilities. What makes humans unique is their psychology. They form bonds with non-related individuals. They sacrifice themselves for abstract concepts. They create hope in hopeless situations. These are not logical behaviors, but they are effective ones. Are you suggesting humans are a threat to the Dominion? A judge asked. I am suggesting, Threxus said carefully, that humans should never be underestimated again. They are not the strongest species. They are not the smartest. But they might be the most dangerous to fight. The tribunal issued its final ruling. The Krovar Dominion would establish a permanent ban on hostile engagement with Earth. No attacks. No invasions. No provocations. Humans were to be left alone, while Zalth began his imprisonment. Something unexpected happened on Earth. The Velkin Collective sent a diplomatic mission to meet with human leaders. The meeting took place in Geneva, the same United Nations building where humans had debated surrender 6 months earlier. The Velkin representative, an elder of their species, addressed the gathered humans. We warned the Krovar about your people. They did not listen. We hope you will be wiser than they were, Secretary General of the United Nations, who who had led Earth through the darkest days of the invasion, responded. "What do you mean?" "You have proven yourselves in battle," the Vulcan explained. "Other species now know that humans are dangerous enemies. But this creates a problem. Fear can lead to preemptive strikes. Someone might decide to destroy Earth before you become too strong." The room filled with worried murmurs. General Wei, now Earth's unified military commander, stood up. "Are you saying we won the war but lost the peace?" "I am saying you must be careful," the Vulcan replied. "Strength without wisdom leads to the same mistakes the Krovar made. You defeated them because they were arrogant. Do not become arrogant yourselves." "What do you suggest?" Colonel Martinez asked. The Vulcans showed holographic images of their own civilization, beautiful cities, peaceful planets, advanced technology. "Join the galactic community, not as conquerors, but as partners. Share what you learned from defending your world. Learn what others can teach you. The galaxy is large enough for cooperation." Over the following months, Earth began its transformation. The United Nations reformed into the unified Earth government. Old national boundaries remained, but humanity started thinking of itself as one species rather than divided nations. Scientists studied the captured Krovar technology, learning to build better ships and weapons. But they also learned something more important: how other species thought, how they communicated, how they viewed the universe. Artists created works celebrating both the courage of Earth's defenders and the tragedy of Krovar soldiers who died far from home. Humans began to understand that their enemies were people too. Following orders, believing in causes, 1 year after the invasion ended, Earth launched its first diplomatic ship. It was a hybrid of human and Krovar technology, built from salvaged warship parts and human ingenuity. The ship traveled to the Vulcan homeworld, carrying ambassadors, scientists, and most importantly, the young girl who had spoken to Zalth in that viral video. She was 9 now, and she carried a message from Earth's children to the galaxy's civilizations. "We do not want to fight anymore, but we will if we must. We would rather be friends." The Vulcan received the human delegation with great ceremony. They introduced Earth's representatives to other species, some peaceful, some warrior cultures, all curious about the humans who had defeated the mighty Krovar. Earth's story spread across the galaxy, not as a tale of human superiority, but as a cautionary tale about underestimating others. Dozens of species that had considered invading Earth changed their plans. Why fight humans when you could trade with them, learn from them, share knowledge? In his prison cell on Krovar Prime, Zelth worked on his manuscript. He wrote every detail he could remember, every mistake, every misjudgment, every moment when he should have listened but did not. The final chapter was titled, "The Terran Lesson, When Warning Becomes Prophecy." In it, he wrote, "We were told about humanity's power. Elder species who had observed them warned us. They explained that humans were dangerous, not because of their technology, but because of their nature. Our arrogance made us deaf to this warning. We believed that military might and advanced weapons would be enough. We were wrong. Humans taught us that survival is not about being the strongest or the smartest. It is about being the most determined. They showed us that unity can emerge from division when faced with an existential threat. They proved that creativity and adaptability can overcome technological superiority. But the most important lesson is this: when someone who knows warns you, listen. The Vulcan Collective gave us wisdom earned over millions of years. We dismissed it as fear. We paid for that dismissal with 12,000 lives and our reputation. Future commanders who read this, remember, pride is not strength. Confidence is not wisdom. And dismissing warnings because they challenge your assumptions is not leadership, is folly. The humans defeated us because we refused to believe they could. That is the simplest truth and the hardest lesson. Our arrogance made us deaf. Our survival made us believers. Zelth finished the manuscript on a quiet evening. He read it once more, making small corrections. Then he submitted it to the military tribunal as required. Within months, every Krovar military academy was teaching from Zelth's manuscript. Young officers studied the Earth campaign as an example of how not to conduct warfare. The chapter on the Velkin warning became required reading for all commanders before deployment. The Krovar Dominion did not fall apart after the defeat on Earth, but it changed. They became more cautious in their expansion. They listened to intelligence reports more carefully. They remembered that even primitive-seeming species could be dangerous if underestimated. On Earth, monuments were built to honor those who died defending their world. But humans also built something else, a memorial to the Krovar soldiers who died. The inscription read, "They came as enemies. They died far from home. We remember them as people who followed orders, just as we did. May all future wars be prevented by wisdom rather than ended by blood." Threxus, now serving as the Krovar ambassador to Earth, attended the dedication ceremony. He stood beside Colonel Martinez and General Wei, watching as the memorial was unveiled. "This is unusual," Threxus said. "Most species do not honor their enemies." "We are not honoring enemies," Martinez replied. "We are honoring the dead." "There is a difference. Your people continue to surprise me," Threxus admitted. "Even in victory, you show compassion, show memory," General Wei corrected. "We remember that war is terrible for everyone involved. Winners and losers both pay in blood." Years passed. Earth became a respected member of the galactic community. Humans served as peacekeepers, mediators, and advisors to species dealing with conflicts. Their experience defending against invasion gave them unique insights into both resistance warfare and the costs of aggression. The young girl who had spoken to Zelth grew into a woman and became Earth's ambassador to the Velkin Collective. She often told people about the day she faced a Krovar commander through a camera and spoke truth to power. "I was just a child," she would say, "but I knew that bullies only win if you let them." Earth taught the galaxy that lesson. Now we all live with the consequences, good and bad. The galaxy was not perfect. There were still wars, still conflicts, still species that refused to learn from history. But Earth's story served as a reminder. Arrogance leads to failure. Warnings ignored become prophecies fulfilled. And sometimes the greatest power is not in weapons or technology, but in the simple refusal to give up. Commander Zelth served his 10 years and was released. He was old now. His purple skin faded to almost gray. He could have lived quietly, forgotten by history. Instead, he requested permission to visit Earth. The request shocked many Krovar citizens. Why would he want to visit the world that destroyed his career? But Threxus understood. "He needs to see them," Threxus explained to the Dominion officials. "He needs to understand what he fought against." Permission was granted. Zelth traveled to Earth and walked through human cities. He saw the memorials to war dead, both human and Krovar. He visited schools where children learned about the invasion. He spoke with survivors who had lost family members to his attacks. It was not forgiveness he sought. He knew some wounds never heal. But he wanted humans to see him not as a distant commander on a ship, but as a person who had made terrible mistakes and lived with the consequences. At the end of his visit, Zelth stood before the memorial to Krovar soldiers. He placed his hand on the stone and spoke quietly in his own language. A translator whispered his words to the gathered crowd. "I am sorry. To the soldiers who died following my orders, to the humans who suffered from my arrogance, to everyone affected by my refusal to listen to wisdom. I cannot undo what I did. I can only ensure others learn from my failure.